All right, thanks to the one lid wonder over here, as I call it now, the device with its one pot and just one lid that also comes with a thermometer. I'm trying something I've never done before on a test recipe, and we're going to see how it does, and if it does, I'll air it. If it does, okay. It's a beef bottom round roast, USDA choice from, I think I got it at Sam's Club. And I normally do chuck roast. If you watch my videos, that's what I recommend. It's what I always do. But because I have a thermometer and I can keep this in my pressure cooker to around 130, maybe 135, that's what everyone seems to be shooting for with a bottom round roast. So that's what I'm going to do. It'll also work real well, I think, with all the vegetables in there at the same time, and they shouldn't overcook that bad with that low of temp. Going to get that started. We're going to sear it in there too, by the way. Be right back. I'm about to heat up the pot. I'm going to put a little bit of avocado oil or whatever oil you got. I think would probably work fine, but I'm going on high 5 on sear saute. Now, just so you'll know, there's exactly what I'm working with, which is a beef bottom round roast, USDA choice Angus again. But it's not a bad looking cut of meat. I've just never used one, so as a pot roast. But once I do this right here and put maybe a tablespoon of that right there, all I'm going to do is let that heat up a little bit, and then we're going to sear a couple of sides on this, and that's kind of, maybe it does do a little flavor. I shouldn't say it don't. And then we're going to just brown it up a little bit and sear it off before we start the pot roast. Be back. All right, I kind of moved the camera around. I wanted to show you that it's 400, well, if you can get about 450 degrees out of that in 4 minutes and 18 seconds on high 5. So we're going to start it. That might be a little hot, and I may get a little smoke more than I want for my house, but fat side down, I'm going to try to somewhat utilize, along with that avocado oil. It'll also have the fat off of that roast that will melt a little bit. So I'm going to let that go for a minute, and then I'm going to flip it around. I don't know, let it sit on each side a couple of minutes. But that's not a crisis. Again, I'm not going to say it even has to be done. It does add a little flavor, though. Okay, I did want you to hear it so you can kind of understand. It is making a good bit of noise, and you may get some smoke. So I just want to show you that right quick, because it's been, I don't know, a minute or so. I'm gonna flip it now. Again, I'm not saying you have to do this a lot, but almost everyone does. And it adds flavor, there's no doubt. But you see, I burned off a little bit of that, or melted a little bit of that fat that added to my avocado oil. So I'll be back when I'll let that go to about maybe 8 minutes. Okay, so you'll know what to expect. You can see there's a little bit of smoke coming in, and I did crack my door, and I have a ventilation system I put over this island, the kind of, I don't want to smoke up the house, in other words. So I have a ventilation going, but it's not as bad as I had expected. And what we're going to do, I'm going to show you this side, because that's probably all I'm going to do to it. In fact, you can see it looks good. It's kind of heavy. I hope you can see that. Not bad, not bad. I'm going to stand it up on that edge just because it works real well. I wouldn't even do that if it wasn't so flat. But anyhow, once I get that done, I'm going to move it over to this platter, and then we're going to get vegetables in the bottom and some broth I got over there and water in there. Be back. Okay, let's take a look at that side. And that, again, this is kind of just, in fact, I'm going to go, I know I'm pulling it out and I'm not doing it anymore, but you can see, I think you can. Yeah, it looks real good. That's perfect. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to let that cool down a little bit, and then we're going to get that stuff out of there, which you can see, it's not a lot, but we're going to get some of that out of there with some water and some stuff once that cools down a bit. And we're going to get these onions cut up. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to cut the onions in quarters and all, and the carrots, and, common sense, those potatoes, we're going to get them all in the pot. Okay, so for kind of an explanation, I'm just putting a little water in there, and then, well, And another thing I didn't mention was I didn't have my normal beef stock, but that works great. I mean, I'm just going to use this 1 can. I'm going to put that entire can in there, and I put, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, 1/4 cup of water in there. Then I'm going to add this. I didn't think about it when I was pouring it in. I was just going to try and, you know, get the bits and pieces off the bottom. That's all it's about, and to try and cool it down a little bit, I guess. But I want to kind of get this, what was left from that, from searing that roast. But what I'm really also trying to tell you is, or what I'm trying to say is that here's my roast, and here's everything I used that you saw. If you looked in the first of the video, I ended up not using but 2 onions, and I used the carrots, and that's how many potatoes. As a matter of fact, that's the potatoes I'm using. I may not use them all. My point is, I just wanted you to have an idea of about what I used. So everything that was on that board is right there cut up, except those 2 onions. I just didn't need them. 3 cloves of garlic is chopped up and in there. So I'm just going to put them in like that. No big deal. I'm going to use stuff like these potatoes and all. Well, I'll show you what I got. Well, I don't know why, but you can see. There's what I got now. The bottom cleaned up real easy. And it's no big deal. If you've ever done it before, you already know that. And all I'm going to do is put a base down. I'll say some potatoes, mostly potatoes on the bottom. And then other stuff. I like onions to be cooked. So I like for them to be on the bottom, but it doesn't really matter. None of it. It's going to get, when that pressure, when this thing comes up to pressure, everything gets cooked. That's all inside that vessel. It doesn't matter what you do. But in fact, I'm probably going to put the roast in right there and then put the rest of the stuff on top of it. And we'll get this started. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so this may be kind of tricky to show, but if you see how the roast, and if you noticed it's tapered on one end, of course, I'm going to try and move my camera where you can see it best I can show it, because it's kind of tricky to do this part, and it's really tricky to video it. So what I'm saying is I want the tip of this to be as close to the center of this roast in the thickest part without being too close to this side and not too close to that side. So I'm going to take it right here, which would put me, if I look at it like this, about right there. That's where I want to be. So I'm going to come right here, not too far in and not too far back. And it's still something I'll check with my Thermometer, but you know, before I slice it. But with this, I shouldn't have to worry about, you know, I'll be close enough with that right there. So I want to do that. I'm going to make sure my cable is well out of the way. And then, like I always, well, I was going to say I turn it off, because a lot of times if it's been in another setting, I turn it off and then restart it. Well, because I'm using pressure and I'd already turned it off, I don't have to. I'm going to do low because I've got the thermometer, so it just makes sense to me. There's not a better explanation. I'm going to do manual. I'm going to take this to 130, and then we'll see what that looks like, and make sure my vent is closed. We're set for 130 manual. I'm going to do a natural release. That means it won't automatically release in a hurry. It will sit here and bleed down the pressure on its own. And then, because with this device, you can set it up to where it'll do a quick release automatically, or you can do a delayed release. But with meats, especially beef and stuff, I just do natural. So we're off and running. It's preheating, and we'll see how that does. I'll try and get a timer running, just so you know right now. Well, we'll just do it this way. It's 103 right now. So we'll see what it is when it's done. All right, and for the record, you can see it's 104. So it just passed by. I went ahead and set up a timer. I would forget. So there's the timer at a minute. Okay, so the unit just came to pressure and started counting down about, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes ago at like 22 minutes. All right, there is at a minute, because I started that a little late, so 48 minutes, and this roast is at 130. Now, I'll say this is going to go past 130 because it's going to sit in here, but you could manually release this pressure right now and get it out of there, and you know, or either that or turn your temp way down, and you know, there's a lot of different ways is my point. But I'm going to let it natural release because I always do with beef, and we'll see what the temp goes to. But I guess my main point is 48 minutes, and that roast is done, and that's usually probably 3 hours in the oven. So, and we'll see what the vegetables look like. So be back. Okay, so it just told me to open it, and it's still got a little bit of pressure on it. It says open. I can see the pin's still up, but it says open. So I'm gonna let that pressure bleed off. It won't let you open it with pressure on it anyhow, but it thinks it's low enough. No big deal. I'm not gonna try it, but believe me, with that pin up, you can't open it. So I'm gonna go ahead and bleed it down because it tells me to open. And as soon as that bleeds down, we're going to take a look at what we got. Okay, so I'm letting it bleed down, and you can see about how long it's been. There's still a little bit of pressure. All right, the pin's all the way down. So I'm gonna still put my hand right there, but it opens real easy, and there we go. And there is what we have. And man, that looks good. So I'm gonna let that cool just a little bit and give it some thought. I'm gonna get something to get that out of there with, but I think we're gonna have a really, the roast looks fantastic. We'll see how it, in fact, let's do something. Let's take a temp reading with a Thermometer, and we are, I'm gonna try and get pretty close to that. 145, that's what we're at right there. If I go all the way through and down near the bottom, I'd want to know what the lowest temp was, and I'm satisfied with, say, 145 like we had. So I'll get something together where I can get it moved over here, and we'll see what we got. Okay, so I wanted to get a few things out right quick and show you. I did it and my camera wasn't running, but we're gonna get that potato. If I can find another, well, here's the onions. That's how they look. And that is, if you ask me, that's the only way I'll eat an onion. And the potato, this was one I just pulled out. Perfect. Man, that is spot on. 197. I look for 200 degrees in a potato for it to be done. And that's what those are. Now, the carrots, those have set out just a second. Let's get one out where I can, and I'm sure it determines, you know, it's kind of depends on what size you get. I'm having to look at my camera because I just had a problem with it, making sure it's not cutting off. But they are also 200 degrees. Now, I'll say this, you might rather not have them quite this mushy. I'm showing you what they're like the minute they come out. But you could easily add things to that. I mean, everybody, you know, likes things different. That's the way I like a carrot. That's the only way I'll eat an onion. And that is perfect for a potato, 200 degrees. I mean, that's what they need to be done. So I'm gonna let this rest just a little bit longer. I'm gonna get some of these out, and then we'll cut them. Now the mushrooms and all, I feel positive. Everything is really close. That temp's gonna work. So anyhow, I'll be back. Okay, so that's how you could serve it, just like that, without doing anything any further. And then you could go right now with it at 166. Now, that's going to be, now that's at the bottom. You know, like I said, 160. The lowest temp is what I always go by. You know, you have to. And 160 or so. And nothing wrong with that. That's going to be a really good roast. All right, we're gonna make a cut on it and see just how it looks. Kind of thin right across the front where you can see what it looks like near the front of it, and it looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and get another one right here. I'm not gonna go much further because this is for tomorrow. Whoops, I got a potato hung up on my knife. And there you go. I mean, I don't know how you beat that for what was it, an hour, or you could have bled it off in 45 minutes. And there's nothing wrong with that. The potatoes are perfect. The carrots, if you ask me, are perfect. I mean, everybody's got their own opinion. Now the onions, they're cooked, but that's the only way I'll eat them. The mushrooms are excellent. I'm gonna get some of this on a plate. put some salt and pepper on it because I have not put any seasoning whatsoever, but I'm about to when I eat it. And I'll get some on the plate and we'll do it. All right, there is what I'm having for supper tonight. There's what'll be tomorrow for everything from sandwiches to, well, just stuff like that. But you see, it is, it cuts easy. It's got a fantastic flavor and chews real well. I am big on for pot roast. I like a chuck roast, but nothing wrong with that. It worked real well. And I also like the fact that it times out with the potatoes and all. And it does that. I mean, depending on how well you like your, say, carrots, but the potatoes are perfect. And so are the mushrooms. I've already ate one. My mouth's going to be full, but I don't need to say a lot more. Well, I do a little bit. I was going to tell you this right here. That in this right here, and I'll probably do this. And I mean, just all you got to do is put it in there, and just get the measurements right, and cook it down a little bit and stir it up, and you've got some really good brown gravy that would make that an open-faced sandwich unheard of, you know, and or just to put over it. But anyhow, it works great just like this. Anyhow, hey, I love y'all. Y'all come back to see me. I'm probably not even in the frame of this camera, but I have no complaints over a bottom round roast. Y'all come back to see me. I love y'all. Bye-bye.